Got it. We're increasingly more diverse. You'll see we're up to 10%, 11%, and some of the things that we have, some of the races that before were not quite as, we still struggle with these last two groups. I'm working on it. And this is about what we've been to for gender, and we're still struggling to get better gender data. So, but right now all we have is binary data. I thought we had it last year, and then we found some errors in the data. But we're working on it. And then 40% first gen, so pretty much what we've been seeing in those areas. And our retention for the first year is pretty strong. And I want to note 2019 is when we made Discovery Corps required. And so it's, we saw, we also did some other things like peer coaches and things, but Discovery Corps is the one thing we know all of our first year students are experiencing, and it makes a difference in that first year retention, which of course then bleeds over to the second year retention. However, still worried about that second year retention. That 10% drop is unusual. So schools like us that have such a high first year retention usually don't lose that many by the second year. So I guess another way of saying it, first year retention, we're in the top 5 percentile of all universities. Second year retention, we're on average. So that's a huge drop for us.
Do you know, just kind of like based on post-COVID, like is this a trend that other colleges and universities are seeing?
Well, this data is all a mix, right? So I don't know. Everybody doesn't know what's happening. It's a mess. And that's great, because that brings me into the second question, right? What is student success? That's one data that we showed you retention, but really the question, especially post-COVID, is what is student success? What is the value of higher education? Right now, in the public eye, higher education is seen equivalent to a Ponzi scheme. I'm serious. In public opinion, higher education, like what? The costs are rising, the value, we're not sure we're getting better jobs after, what's the point? And so we've been trying to think in the student success community, this is a national work, you see all these organizations thinking about it, different ways to think about student success other than retention and persistence. And so that ranges everything on the top there from employment and how they do after, how transformation, well-being, fulfillment, economic mobility, ROA is return on investment. I put this much money into do I get that much out when I'm done? Being able to repay your loans. So these are all these different measures of student success, and you probably have other ones, right? When you think of a successful student. But these are sort of national measures that we're going to start thinking institutionally, how are we measuring and how are we living up to those scorecards? So that brings me to some emerging themes in higher ed. This is nobody's list but mine. I've been doing a lot of thinking and reading about student success and where our students are struggling, especially post-COVID. And I really believe these are 4 things that we should sort of center, or at least I want to center my work on this year. Well-being, thinking of the student more than their academic performance, but their whole well-being. Who are they as people? How are they being supported? This is their community for the most part. Loss of learning is real. You may have seen recently in the Seattle Times that like our 3rd or 5th graders are at 50% of their reading level. 50% of them are making reading level. So loss of learning from COVID is real. Students are not at the same level of reading. And I'm going to talk more about that, reading, writing, math, and other things, which is important. Sense of purpose. Students need to know what they're investing in. Why are they here in college? It's no longer just, especially our institution, maybe this will change with that, just to come and join a fraternity, right? Or go to college football games. Really, and especially our students are really intent on why we're here in college. And democracy. I think we have a role, especially as a state institution, to help students understand their role in a democracy. So let me talk a little bit about all of those. So students' well-being, when I talk about well-being, I'm talking about not only their academic well-being, but their mental, their physical, their financial, etc. There's some staggering statistics there. Mental health is a big factor in why students drop out of college. It's highly related to lower grades. High school students, and this last couple of years, persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. And student mental health work is kind of a root cause of faculty burnout. And I know you all are feeling this too. I've heard your stories. I've heard your concerns for your students and how that's impacting your own well-being. As well, you're probably also dealing with some of this stuff. I think we're all a little unsure post-COVID what is life and what does it mean for us. Maybe that's just me in my midlife crisis, but I think there's some things here that aren't just students that we need to pay attention to as a community of the university. And so, oops, my slide didn't get loaded, so I'm going to go back. So I'm going to turn this moment over to Kim. Kim, do you want to introduce yourself and share your resource?
Sure. So I don't think the resources here just yet. I'm so sorry. But my name is Kim Swenson, and I come to you all around the Ohio State University. I'm an instructional coach here to support you in any way that I can, be it pedagogy, active learning, whatever you're interested in doing. I'm here to support you. And I put together some materials about student well-being that I gathered from the Resilience Lab here. And I also have a little bookmark, Richie is bringing this over, a little bookmark for you with some just quick tips on what to do when students come to you and express the struggles that they are coping with at any given moment, in terms of how many of you have been in that moment where a student shares something and you're not sure what to do with that. So there's a really easy acronym, VAR, so you validate, right? You appreciate, and you refer, right? Because we can't have all of those expertise. So I have a little bookmark for you all with some waffle resources on the back of that as well, with some sample sentence phrases, starters that you can use to appreciate that empathy that your student is sharing with you and make sure that they get to the right supportive person. So hopefully this will be here a little bit.
Okay.
But thanks for welcoming me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bookmark. I was hoping it would be here so you could do it for this conversation, but I know we have a lot of expertise anyway. So just take 2 minutes and in your small groups, review and reflect on what, well, you don't have the handouts. What could you do to support your students and your own well-being this coming year and this coming quarter? So go ahead.
So I guess one thing I was talking about was just like how in COVID, like work life, like the boundary between work and life really completely disappeared for everyone. And like, that was not good for me. And I think since then I've been really, well, partly during COVID and since then I've been trying to draw really clear boundaries when I work, when I answer student emails, and explaining those to students like really clearly and talking about the importance of them having boundaries and taking time for their lives, and that it's okay to take time for your lives, so that might help you do better in school if you're happy and rested and have time for your families. And so trying to say that those things are important as well is something I think
I love it. Giving permission and setting your own boundaries, I think. Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been really thinking about in this area is really making time within my classroom to create community. And in that vein, I talk my table into just introducing yourselves to each other rather than actually talking about it.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think that was really powerful. I heard the conversations, I saw the smiles. That definitely helps everybody feel more safe and better about being here today, right? Any other last great ideas? I know there are thousands out there. I feel like I should pick on somebody from the back row. Oh, go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I've always found being vulnerable also an okay thing too, that, and you said boundaries and sometimes also just not knowing and saying like, that's why I love an institution of learning is I don't own all the knowledge either. And I want them to be empowered to know and like passing those things back and forth, I think.
Awesome. Yeah. Any other last? Sunita?
I would say that, we were more focused on faculty burnout this year.
Yeah, we've had a great group of
Yeah,
that this
and
summer.
after this. So, and a lot of it is because they've offered a lot of flexibility and been so tuned to well-being and caretaking for the students over the last couple of years that it is not sustainable.
Yeah.
So, I participated in a specifications creating meeting circle this summer. Mostly we shared ideas and so I learned from them, and so I'm actually wondering about that. If that could be something that preserves some well-being for all of us.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, and I might just pose like being so flexible that everything's due the last day of class. Is that really helping our students' well-being?
No.
You know, I mean, sometimes I have to say, students, I realize you have priorities and maybe this class isn't your priority this quarter, and it's okay to get a B or to take it another quarter, right? Because sometimes it is, right? They have lives, and acknowledging that. I love that. Yeah, we need to protect our own well-being because if we're not, it's like the, you know, the analogy of the plane. Got to put your safety mask on first. If you're not feeling well and centered and supported, there's not a lot you can do to support the students. Okay. There we go. So the next big idea that's really been emerging for me is sense of purpose. And this is coming out a lot in the literature. It's been there for a while, actually, but starting to get referred to a lot. So when we talk about sense of, it's this active commitment to the goals that are both meaningful for the self and of consequence to the world beyond the self. What's really, I think sometimes we like, or I think students think the sense of purpose is ingrained or something that you just know is your talent. And I think what's really important from Colby's work is it's something actually you can develop. You don't have to know, especially students in your class, what you're going to do with the rest of your life. In fact, I didn't know I was going to end up here, right? When I was a freshman in college taking intro math, I didn't even know I was going to be a math major, let alone, you know, be a college professor and then administrator. Even 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have thought I was going to be an administrator. And so I think thinking about that is it's something that develops. And once you sort of get that purpose, it endures over time, but it also grows with effort and expertise, right? And it is related to health, wellness, and resilience, right? If you know where you're going, if you have a sense of purpose for why you're in college or doing anything else, it can help everything else be, it's sort of an anchor. UW-Tacoma did some really interesting work. They went, I'm going to admit Gavin back in. They went and interviewed students who had left college without graduating. And just, they did an interview, they got some money from the Tacoma, from a Tacoma foundation. And this is what sense of purpose, a lack of sense of purpose, especially about college, looked like. I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do, and I think that's just kind of the reason I didn't want to continue with school. I really just think that I didn't have much motivation to be there because I didn't see what was actually was gaining by being in school. It was just kind of the thing everybody always told me to do, and that was supposed to be a school. I didn't want to waste any more time and money not knowing what career I wanted to go into. So again, back to the ROI conversation, but just sort of like wandering around. Anybody know any students that were like this? Anybody was a student like this? I was, like I said, I just started taking class. I went to college because everybody told me I should. I was a first generation college student. My counselors at school said, helped me find a bunch of scholarships, and there I went. So we have one class. We have multiple sections. B Core 1 through 3, we offer it winter and spring. So first of all, refer your students to that class if you really feel like they're struggling with that. It gives them 2 credits to really dig in with on, what brought them to school. They explore all their different majors and minors. They think about academic and co-curricular experiences and start thinking about skills they need for a successful career. So that's the first thing you can do to help develop. Send students who you know are really struggling, send them to those classes. We have like 3 sections winter and 3 sections spring. And if you want to know more, Avery or Peter can tell you about them. The next is you should be able to, hopefully as part of one of the B Core learning goals, provide opportunities for students to reflect on their learning journey and their goals for college. It makes sense in a lot of our discovery classes to do that. And finally, career services. Kristen's going to tell us a little bit about what they have to offer students.
Hi, my name is Kristen Lebrecht. I'm the pre-health advisor here at Bothell, and I work in career services. Many of you have heard of the Blue Zones. Yeah, so years ago, I learned about the Blue Zones and became really enamored with this idea of ikigai, which is your sense of purpose, and how it can really guide you moving forward. And I've worked with students for over 25 years, and really kind of seeing this trend emerge where when they see how their skills can be used in a meaningful way for themselves, gaining an actual living, and also to benefit society, they really start to thrive. So what I have for you, everyone here is a handout. I'm also happy to email it out so that you have an electronic version. But it's some basic principles around ikigai. What are the kind of 4 elements we coach students through in terms of the skills they're bringing. Oftentimes they say they don't have skills. I say, have you babysat? Have you done the dishes? Those are skills that you can transfer to other spaces. How they use those skills in terms of what they like doing, how it's going to benefit others and themselves. Those are the kinds of questions you can ask to help. There's some resources here that have QR codes to take you to the Career Center site, so you can pass those on to students. We also have a whole site dedicated to faculty resources. So if you want to build some of these modules into your classes, or if you want to invite some of us in to talk in your classes about specific themes, there's workshop request forms too, so you can fill those out. So I'll pass these out so you have them. If I don't have enough, I'll also email them so you have an electronic version. Happy to be a resource for everyone.
Would you say what Blue Zones are again?
Blue zones, sorry. These are the spaces around the earth where they have a high percentage of folks who live beyond 100 years of age. So that sense of purpose really kind of contributes to their longevity. And when he just came out with a Netflix documentary series. The original research was published years ago, but the documentary shows these folks living, and it's really powerful. So I encourage you to take a look and got free time.
Cool. When I taught intro math, I gave students a survey from the Carnegie Foundation to ask them about why they were going to college. And what was nice about that survey is it was given at like 40 institutions across it, so you could compare your data. What was striking to Carnegie about our students that took that class was the percentage of them that said they want to make a difference in their life and their communities. That's why they came to college. So again, sense of purpose isn't just about where you want to do, but the impact you want to have on the world. And our students are very driven that way. So that is very exciting. All right. So learning loss. This is sort of the monster in the room that we don't know quite how to deal with because it's new for us, right? We've always had differential students coming with learning, but so many students coming in. So it's described as unfinished learning, missed learning from a disruption, say COVID, attrition from previous learning, or disengaged learning. Students have lost 5 months in math and 4 months in reading. But it's not just the academic knowledge. They also have lost skills, behaviors, and mindsets of learning, right? So what are we seeing as an impact? a lot of absenteeism. As we talked about earlier, mental health, loss of community of learning, like knowing how to get together in group and have study sessions, or even have group work in class. And unfortunately, this isn't equal. This is only widening our opportunity gaps. So that's a little alarming. A school in Texas gave this presentation. They actually went and interviewed faculty about what it looks like for them. And they categorized the results from their interviews. Life management, students don't know how to, students were struggle with time management, priority, resilience, self-advocacy, academic skills, critical thinking, writing, self-directed learning, information fluency, and also professional skills, communication, collaboration, career direction, and goal setting. So the gap is real. The gap is real for our students. Those of you who taught last year saw it already. And again, we're seeing it as a lack of engagement, deprioritization of school, product over process, get things done versus learn from it. Expectations of continuous flexibility, that's what Sunita was talking about, and student life changes. And we'll also post my slides for you all, so I see some people frantically taking notes and you don't necessarily want to unless you like to. So from that same Texas study, this is what some faculty in their study were doing, and I've seen some of our faculty do the same. So early and frequent low stakes assessment. So assessing.
Sorry about that.
But low stakes. So students getting feedback, that's engaging. Increasing peer engagement, giving more opportunities for peer learning in small groups, but also bringing in peer facilitators and peer educators. Rethinking the role of technology. Students, if they can just watch a video online, they don't want to come and watch you do it live, right? So where is technology in your classroom, and how can you maximize that to support you and your students? And where is it actually disrupting learning, and where is it getting away? And building community by, like somebody said, opening yourself up, letting students know you're real people, that you're also struggling, that you see them, you hear them, those kind of things, and also having social connections with other students. So this time find a partner, and find a partner that you haven't been talking to, so maybe at another table, or because it would be great to meet someone else, and say, what have you noticed around loss of learning, if anything, and what strategies have you tried? So again, you get another chance.
Just kind of being a student campus here, it feels awful. Like for me, myself, I already noticed it's hard for kind of students to get kind of integrated since COVID. It's all kind of exacerbated that.
Right.
I'm talking about just kind of ways, like in the classroom, try to kind of have more exercise, get them to kind of meet one another, and talk to one another. Just kind of figure out different ways of just kind of creating that engagement. One thing is we have no way to track what that actually works outside, like outside of the great campus, outside of the classroom.
Well, a preview of a coming conversation. You actually can measure sense of purpose. So there are measures, I'm saying, that you can get pre-post. So just.
Jonathan had something great to say, which is that students often have internalized that message too about themselves, that they've lost all this time, all this learning, and they, that there's a kind of a hopelessness. And so he talked about how in 3 to 4 months is not that much time. Like you can catch up with that. That is very doable, and your life is long. And I'm totally speaking everything. Your life is long, and that is not time that you can't make up, or learning that you can't make up. So to recognize that and maybe acknowledge it and maybe use that as a point of inspiration.
Yeah, give space for it. I love that.
So one of the things we were talking about is I feel like students have developed this mindset around learning, that learning is the facts, which it turns out you can get from going to the library and picking out a book, duh. But we don't all do that, and that means there must be some value and some learning that's happening in this space that is different from the space that is your couch where you could learn that fact. But students have kind of wrapped their brains around this idea that if I know that fact, then I have done the learning. And what that means is that fundamentally they can't do the learning on their couch because they could check out the book in the library and learn the thing. You know, bringing explicitly those learning goals and learning outcomes that cannot be gathered from that book on your couch, I think helps students see the value in being here.
Yeah, and so something I'm trying to point out for all of these things is that we are a great resource to each other, and we also have resources on campus. So one resource here is our learning centers, the Writing and Communication Center, the Quantitative Skills Center, the Academic Skills Coaching, are also places if there's specific skills that students need support or extra time with, they have trained people to help them as well. So it's another resource. But yeah, I think making space for it, calling it out, are great techniques. And I'm bringing all these things to you because you're the first teacher, and you're probably the only class that they can guarantee that they're just in with other first-year students. So it's okay for them to ask questions. It's okay that you don't have to be worried that there's a senior in the classroom that will laugh at them. And we kind of think of you all, I don't mean to downgrade this, but as their homeroom teacher, basically. You are their support. This is their time, their space to learn about campus resources, to learn about how to learn, and to really understand what college life is. So that's why we're spending time at that in this meeting. And I know I'm getting close to time, and my alarm's going to go off because I have to run downstairs. But let me go through this last idea. So the other thing that I want us to start thinking about, this is a new idea that came to me this summer that I hadn't thought about, so it might be new for some of you too. I know it's not new for some of you because you teach a whole Discovery Corps class on this, but supporting democracy. So I just want to bring up the two red bullets. In 1996, 25% of the world population lived under democracies. We are down in 2020 to 5%. And United States, right, is going this way. Yeah. On all measures of democracy. We feel it, we know it. I think, especially as a state institution, we have these responsibilities to promote social mobility, educate citizens, create and disseminate knowledge, and cultivate the meaningful ideas across difference. This is how we promote democracy in our classrooms and get students engaged. So we have two resources. First, the Diversity Center is going to talk about one resource, and then Avery, and I'm just saying that in advance because I have to run downstairs and welcome the first year students. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Your slides are right here.
Thank you.
So this is Melissa from the Diversity Center. She's the director, in case you haven't met her yet.
Yes, thank you, Cinnamon, for that introduction. Yes, my name is Melissa Sumiko-Keatley. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the director for the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, supporting the Student Diversity Center specifically. I do have my colleague here. I'm going to let Cheryl introduce herself as well.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Gordon. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Capacity Building with the Office of DEI. I use she, her pronouns.
Cheryl's brand new, just started with our office. Yay! Welcome, Cheryl! Thank you. So I appreciate someone talking about democracy, and then I noticed the piece down at the bottom about pluralism so much because we actually were accepted into a cohort through NASPA and the Constructive Dialogue Institute to bring their learning program to campus called Perspectives. So Perspectives is really helping students be able to engage around constructive dialogue to prepare them to engage, right, like in a society of democracy. So some of the 5 principles that the program covers is here on the screen: letting go of winning, sharing your story, inviting others to do the same, asking questions to understand, acknowledging the role of emotions, and when possible to seek common ground. What I really appreciate about their program is they have some really awesome outcomes actually. I'm not going to list all of them, but one of the things that did come out of students and faculty and staff taking their program was this increase in effectiveness, right? Like their general warmth towards others, which I think is down, right? Like across the country. It's like we don't know how to just like have this general warmth towards our fellow like humans, which makes me very sad. And I think DEI work, as Caroline and I often talk about, is it's not been working in the past few years. The approach that has been used, we've seen people turn away from it, and in many places, we're very lucky here in the Northwest, but right, like in other places across the country, we're seeing this like reverse, where we're kind of going back in terms of like our inclusion efforts. So we're seeing this movement towards dialogue, and that's where we're going to, is we're gonna incorporate more and more dialogue within our programs to try to encourage people to be able to reach across difference. So this program is really exciting because it helps us do that. One of the foundations of the Perspectives program is it's going to help students understand kind of what their values are from a very foundational level. So they'll actually be able to even take a quiz and see where they kind of rank in each of these foundational core concepts, because each of these things then determine how we show up in conversations, how we show up when we're in conflict, how we show up when we're hearing someone else's story. So some of the core concepts here, I just wanted to, again, give kind of a brief teaser for some of the things covered in the program. It's by no means exhaustive, but how can they begin to understand where someone else's value might be in conflict with theirs? But, right, like that, these are all things we would generally say are probably like good things to have. Let's see. One more thing, I'm trying to go super fast to respect your all's time. What's really nice is this is a blended learning program. So it actually consists of 6 asynchronous online modules that students can work through. So these could either be done like in person in a class setting, or they could be done as like homework. I'm actually having my student staff at the Diversity Center, they're going through it as part of training. So if you work with any other like student groups outside of your classroom, if you have like a cohort program you support or anything, consider us. We have this for the whole year. So we will be able to offer it fall, winter, and spring. And then what they do in the peer-to-peer conversations, there's 3 of them, is students will actually apply and engage in person with their peers to process, to reflect their learning, and then practice the skills that the program is giving them. So what's also nice is they give us like a ton of data, like they do all the back end for us, and we get access to that dashboard. So again, I'm like super thrilled that we got accepted to this cohort and that we can offer this. And then the last piece that I will talk about is we're actually also able to offer this for faculty and staff. So I don't want to like preview that too much because Caroline and Cheryl are going to be sending out communication for what that offering looks like. But so faculty and staff will also be able to go through it, again, to kind of align the 2 sides of the house, what the students are experiencing. We hope the faculty and staff are also then able to engage in. And I think we could all be better, right, like at learning these skills and being able to engage across difference. So super quick, like I said, I ran through it, yeah.
And so if we were maybe interested in having our classes run through this towards the end of the quarter, would that be a possibility that you could talk to about?
Absolutely, and that is my hope. That is my hope that you would want to incorporate this into your classes. Again, like I said, I try to run through things super quickly, and what's nice is it can be as long of a rollout as you want or as quick of a rollout. They advise like no shorter than like 3 weeks, because again, to give people time to like digest the materials. But what's really nice is the instructor guide gives you like everything. It gives you kind of like, here's the cadence for which you could have them go through these things. Here's supplemental activities if you want to actually deepen beyond just the peer-to-peer conversations. So like I said, they've literally done like all the legwork for us. We're just helping like apply it and then dig deeper with some of our offerings within the center, which will then be built upon our winter and spring offerings. So yeah, just wanted to run through, yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize at all.
So in looking at this,
yes,
I immediately see how this could plug into something that I was planning to do with my class. But that might involve like a peer-to-peer conversation around the topics of my class rather than necessarily the topics that are present in their peer conversation guides. Would that be something you think that they would be
open to, or?
I think so. Honestly, they're pretty open to however we want to apply the learning. So like I said, they just give it all to us. And there's lots of different ways schools are applying this. It could be part of, right, like some schools are doing it as part of their like doing this content, then incorporating it into like their intergroup dialogue content and curriculum. Yeah, I think there's lots of different ways we can have this incorporated. And what I can do is I can send Cinnamon some links to give out to people so that way you can look through all the materials and what they'll be going through. But I hope that doesn't deter you from possibly being interested in the faculty and staff one. So you'll get a lot of like teasers for what would be covered, but we really do hope that faculty and staff will also consider taking it. Yeah. Yes.
I'm curious, what will happen after this year? Will there be are we creating our own version of something?
We are hoping to actually continue this and then again, like I said, further expand it because we are moving in that dialoguing model. We are looking at whether it's like an intergroup dialogue or intergroup relations type of curriculum to then again expand the learning. So that's kind of the direction my office is moving in, is we will continue to create spaces that apply this. My background's in emotional intelligence, so then right, like emotional intelligence applies to this in a lot of ways. So I would love to bring some of that background here as well, and so some of the programmatic offerings we have. So that's to kind of just give you a teaser of like how we're thinking about how this can be expanded upon. But we are hoping to continue our work with this CDI, the Constructive Dialogue Institute. Yes.
I'm wondering, and maybe this is, you keep kind of saying, we'll do that faculty staff stuff later, yes. But I'm just wondering what I can understand in training students, is it also just giving faculty and staff better citizens, or is there an internal university goal, like we want better dialogues within university?
I think both. I think I've seen the way, so our staff, our campus I think is very relational in some ways, but I think I've seen the ways that someone fires off a really heated email, or I'll watch an interaction between a supervisor and like the person who's on their team. And I think we could all be better about the ways that we're engaging in conversations. So that's, to be perfectly blunt, is that I think we could be a more relational campus, actually. I think sometimes we mistake relational for something else. Caroline says transactional sometimes, which I think is actually true. We see the way that happens and that plays out. And I think that we've known from faculty and staff that they are actually looking for learning. They're looking for spaces to be able to engage with each other. And a lot of the like peer-to-peer conversations are actually really great. They're not too spicy, right? Like you're able to engage in a way that actually you walk away being like, wow, I really learned something and was able to like reflect. Some of the students have described it as like, it's actually cathartic to be able to like explore some of these topics. And I think our faculty and staff are actually looking for the same thing, to be able to engage with each other, to be able to like connect on these topics. So.
Yeah, I think that's really great. I just would like to throw out the idea here that while it's really great if we could have that internal and better conversations, the university is not run, the underlying goal here is democracy, right? Mm-hmm. The university is not run democratically in any way. So 100%. I guess I would want to push on a little bit like the idea that if we have better conversations, things will go better. I think more faculty voice in decision making, even student voice, right? We're talking about encouraging students to feel like democratic citizens. We're not just sending them off into democracy. We could do that here as well. So I just wanted to put that out there as a laudable goal, but maybe we need to look together.
And what I hear you talking about is the institutional, which is 100%. I hear that. Absolutely, yeah. And I think we're almost thinking of starting with the interpersonal. Okay. Because I think what we will sometimes see then is the institutional will follow the interpersonal. And that sometimes we focus so much on the systemic and institutional, we miss the interpersonal. We will be such good stewards of like fighting for the policy, but then we're sitting here causing harm and impact to the person who's right in front of us. Does that make sense? So that's, I don't dismiss what you're saying at all.
Absolutely, no, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, last one, I don't want to take up people's time, but yeah, one more.
Building on Ian's comment, I'm curious, will there be a version of this that is for administrators?
So Caroline is having so I can't speak for every like administrator or like member of leadership, but Caroline is having CET go through this. So that's like the cabinet leadership team. So I will say that, right, like that was one of the feedback we had gotten from our faculty and staff training last fall that we offered, is there actually wasn't a ton of leadership administrators that showed up to that training. So Caroline's pushing very hard, like our leaders, like, hey, you all have to be in this too. So CET is actually going through it. Yeah.
And maybe mix them in with the faculty so that both sides get to see that the other side is just people trying to do the best that they can do.
Perfect. Okay, Cheryl, anything that I forgot or missed?
That was great.
Perfect. Thank you so much for letting me steal some time.
That's it for me. But yes, I will send some materials for Cinnamon to share out to the group then, so that you can take a look and dive a little bit deeper. But then you can reach out to us if you are interested in incorporating.
I just name dropped my name a couple times, like I had answers to something. What I have is a question, only a question, which is, and I'm sharing a conversation that Kristen Gustafson and myself and Deb and Kim and some other people have had over the spring and summer. That is just asking the same questions that everyone else just asked. We were maybe trying to bring it together a little bit in that we have been talking about the scholarship of teaching and learning, like how we assess questions like, are we doing well at building community, or are we doing well at that? And we know that many of us are trying to do that on a small scale in our classrooms, like am I doing a good job at this? Programmatically, we should be doing that as a program, like programmatically, are we doing a good job at this? And we have little pieces of it. So one part of our question is sort of how much of that is happening and can we bring it together a little bit so that we don't ask, someone who asks some of these same questions at like every fall retreat, like, oh, are we succeeding in helping students think about reflecting on college? And we don't have good answers for any of it because we've never really endeavored to answer them very systematically. So how can we do that? And the other side of that question is actually that in FYPP specifically, many of us, not all of us, but many of us are on a teaching track or are building our teaching resumes for other future professional development at Bothell or elsewhere. And it's something that many of us probably could benefit from in like a professional development sense, getting better at scholarship for teaching and learning, having a chance to publish these things. But many of us have not been trained in that or have a lot of resources for that. So curious how many people are on that cusp of feeling like I could maybe do some good work in this because I have good questions and I have good things I'm doing but don't know how to do it. We had a sense that that was maybe a common feeling but don't really know without asking you. And so most of that was our question. Could we be doing something better within FYPP to help teaching faculty who are focused on teaching, whoever that may be, whether you're teaching track faculty, a non-teaching track faculty who just really likes teaching, maybe someone in the part-time track who might be looking at other professional development opportunities outside of teaching or curriculum or other things. And what can we do that helps them FYPP do better and grow? That has no answers in it. No answers at all whatsoever, no information, it was just questions. I made just a little survey that because I came in late, didn't have coffee, I might have gotten a parking ticket, didn't have time to just being still here, same person, what I've always been. So I would love to get a QR code or that survey emailed out up there a little bit later, and would also just be happy if people wanted to come up and talk and share ideas, but we're fixing to make something happen. So if you want to get on board, come along. That's all I got.
Yeah, so we have a break coming up around 11, but between now and then we have two more things to do. One, we're going to do some small group discussions. So in your groups, we want you to just chat, not 20 minutes, let's make it 15 minutes, about things you've learned this summer. So things you talk about with your peers in the FYPP reading circles, things you've learned on 1AG, things you've read in the newspaper or heard on NPR, things you're kind of struggling with as you develop your classes. This is just kind of a time for you to check in with each other and share some of the struggles or information or answers to questions you have for the next 15 minutes. And then we'll take about 5 minutes and report out some of the things we were talking about in the whole group. Cool? All right, you got 15 minutes on the clock. All right, we're going to come back to the main group now, folks, for some reporting out. Get your attention up at the front.
So we don't have a lot of time, but we want to hear just like a couple of thoughts, something that you learned, just something that you want to share for your discussion. Can you get a volunteer?
Yeah, so because we were talking about democracy before this, we got into talking about, how you do democracy in your class, not just talk about it. One of the things we came up with was having things open to democratic discussion in the class. So an example we came up with was, say like for a rubric or something, you could write up the rubric or write up like a skeleton rubric and then pose it as a discussion to the class. So I can make modifications and changes, and you can even do this for like the whole course final grade to an extent. There are lots of other aspects of the class. But the thing we came up with was to propose it like as participatory democracy, not like electoral democracy, right? Students voting between a couple of options. You want it to be a discussion process that achieves a consensus to avoid alienating like chunks of the class, and also to frame it like, you know, you are the expert and they are not experts, but you could absolutely be doing democracy like, between experts and not experts, right? It involves motivating, explaining, and having things like honestly open for discussion and like really fundamental things like writing. I also would be super curious to hear from anybody else. So I got a lot out of the reading groups. I did not really like 1AG, so if anyone has like a counter perspective and is like, no, actually 1AG was really great, I'd be super curious to hear from those folks.
I liked the reading groups too, Matt Brooklyn, so appreciate the time you spent on organizing those. And we have these resources, right? I think I'd rather see us take advantage of all of the resources we have in this room before we, add things from outside sources. Wow, there's so much wealth I'm getting just from these conversations today.
Yeah, the reading circles this summer were really great. So great appreciation to the people who led them, put them together. Thank you. One more thought? Any discussion? Okay, well, maybe everyone will be able to talk a little bit more like during the break and during lunch. But now we're going to have Suzanne Yates, who's Assistant Dean for Academic Advising, who's going to come and speak to us.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Good to see so many faces here today. As she said, my name is Suzanne Yates. I use she, her pronouns. My title is Acting Assistant Dean for Academic Advising. There is a lot happening in the world of academic advising on our campus, and so I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the changes that are going to be happening to academic advising over the next year, just so you have some context and lots of time to ask questions. But we'll have time for general questions as well. If you have questions about what's going to happen with our incoming students, the huge class that we've just enrolled, already 1,000 students this summer, and we'll have another 100 before the week is out of first-year students, so very exciting. So some of you may have heard there's going to be a pretty significant shift in the way that we do academic advising on our campus over the next year. So what happened? Well, after 18 months of discussion and working groups that included advisors and advisor-adjacent partners on our campus, a decision was made to centralize our professional academic advisors. And what that means is, right now, the way our academic advisors are structured is that we have our pre-major advisors, and then we have our major advisors siloed in each of the schools. And for a number of reasons, which we can talk about, it hasn't been ideal. So we're going to restructure. We're going to have one central advising unit for the entire campus, a one-stop shop for students to visit for academic advising, whether they're in pre-major status, whether they're a transfer student, whether they're in their major, whether they're ready to graduate. And this is just undergrad, to be clear, not graduate students, if anyone works with graduate students, but specifically undergraduate students. So we will have a new academic advising unit that will be a one-stop shop for everyone. There's been lots of questions about why, and we do have a SharePoint site for academic advising that hopefully folks have seen. It's gone out in a couple of different emails, but if you really want to dig into the weeds, there's some really extensive reports in there that our working groups have done for the first couple phases about why this is the right move and what kinds of issues we wanted to address by doing this. But in general, I just listed four sort of the biggest things that come up when we have this conversation, is making sure that our students are getting a consistent experience and consistent levels of support throughout their life cycle as a student, and to reduce any questions about expectations for advisors and expectations for students. We do want to reduce some of the headaches that we still have with our 2+2 system, where currently a student goes through pre-major with one advisor and then gets handed off to a school with a different advisor. Not necessarily that having a different advisor is the problem, but that process itself is very clunky. And so our hope is that that will reduce some of the issues we have there. We want to create equity for our advisors, because our advisors aren't reporting as a single unit right now. Their jobs have kind of morphed all over the place. And that's created issues for students, it's created issues for staff. So you want to make sure that we're creating a new home for advisors with really clear, transparent career ladder and professional development opportunities so that we can retain some really amazing staff that we've been lucky to have as advisors on our campus. And then we are going to try to address some specific retention issues. I don't think there's an expectation that a new advising unit is going to solve all of our retention issues, but we know that we have certain retention issues when it comes to student support, transitioning to the major, things like that. So our hope is that making advising more accessible with this new central unit will help reduce some of those issues. So that's generally what's going to happen over between now and the next year. So here's what's happening right now and kind of what we've done so far. We've had 4 working groups composed of advisors, of faculty, of advising partners on campus. They provided recommendations to us after some extensive research based on domains of student life cycle and communication, what the career ladders and professional development opportunities should be, around how we use EAB Navigates, and how we will continue to engage with the schools for both advisors and students and faculty. Because obviously this is a big undertaking. There's a lot of nuances in each of those. So our working groups put together 4 reports, have put those forth as recommendations in terms of how we move forward. Cinnamon and I have been working over the last couple of months, well, for a while, but the last couple of months specifically getting feedback on these particular reports, both from staff and from faculty. And we're continuing to do that now. We do have another session later this afternoon, a Zoom one at 2 o'clock today that went out to the faculty listserv that hopefully folks saw if they're interested in. But we're going to continue to gather this feedback so that we feel like we have a critical mass of feedback on these working group reports through mid-October. And then by the end of October or early in November, Cinnamon and I will announce a decision in terms of how our general organizational structure will work in this new unit. Things like which advisors are working with which programs. Are there lead advisors? Are they working in groups? What's the student's life cycle going to look like with advising? We will have some decisions made around that in the middle of fall quarter, and then be able to move forward with the advisors through the rest of the planning and the implementation with the goal of having everything set by next summer. Certainly by the time school starts in the fall of 24. That's kind of where things are at right now. Other things that are coming next in the work that Cinnamon and I need to do. One of the really popular recommendations from one of our working groups in terms of interacting with the schools is creating MOAs or MOUs, making sure that there's a really clear definition of what schools will handle and what advisors will handle when it comes to supporting our students throughout the process. Right? Every school acts a little bit differently. A memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding, yeah. There's lots of nuances in terms of how each school works, how each school supports students, schools that have clinical programs, have specific programmatic accreditations, all of those things we need to account for. So we're going to do that with MOAs. So Cinnamon and I will start working on that process. Also, once we've decided on what the sort of academic advising structure will be, it becomes a matter of how do we staff it. It's not going to be a blind pull in terms of this person's going in this slot, this person's going in this slot. We're not doing that. I'm sitting down with each of the advisors and having conversations about where they're at in their career, where their professional interests lie, what kinds of things they would like to do, and trying to see if we can slot people into things that work best for them, that really work towards their strength, and give them the professional development opportunities that they're really hoping for. Just to be clear, as part of this process, there will be no layoffs, no demotions. It will just be sort of reorganizing folks of where they're already at in terms of like what programs they're working with and the complete scope of their advising responsibilities. And then the hope is we are going to have a beautiful new one-stop shop advising space. So space planning is currently working to come forth with some proposals for us about how we might do that. It's looking like our best bet at doing that is going to be over in UW1, but in terms of what that would look like, we don't know yet. Space planning is running the numbers, given the number of staff we're talking about, remote work, in-person work, privacy issues that we need to account for when working with students. So we're hoping to hear back from them sometime in January with some next steps about what that unit might look like. But again, the hope is that everything will be live next summer, including hopefully the space at least by the start of fall 24. So that's kind of where things are headed. We still have a whole year of advising before this happens, right? So we still have plenty of work on our plates in terms of our brand new giant first year incoming class that our pre-major advisors are ready to support and are working towards that over the next year, while at the same time sort of keeping these discussions in the back of their mind. So it's going to be a little bit of a chaotic year for us, but we're ready for it. And we've been really thankful for the faculty who have engaged in this with us and have shared your input and your thoughts about what you think might be best for students when we do our advising. And we're looking forward to unveiling a shiny new unit sometime next year. What questions can I answer for anybody? Yeah.
Just to be clear, for this year, when we're talking to students about what they should do, if they need to see an advisor or who they should talk to, it's the same as it's always been.
Yep, same as it's always been. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I would anticipate by the time that we're ready to launch next year, there'll be really clear messaging to faculty about what does it look like and how do you interact. And yeah, lots there. But in the meantime, for the next year, business as usual. Yeah. Yeah.
For those of us who are teaching for the first time, same as it's always been.
Fair point. So you may have a combination of students, some who are already in their major and some who are in pre-major. If you have a student who needs to speak to their advisor and they're in their major, they should know who that is already and be able to contact with them at the school level. If they are a pre-major student, they will have been assigned a pre-major advisor through Navigate. They know how to connect with us that way or through our welcome desk, through our generic email address. Those are the best ways. And if for any reason you're ever unsure, have this for a student situation, I don't know what to do, feel free to reach out to me personally. We can always find the right person or place that they need to go from a support standpoint because we acknowledge that it's a little confusing and a little all over the place. There's lots of different options in terms of providing support to students. So maybe an academic advisor isn't always even the right person, but we're happy to talk that through with you all at any time. So please feel free to reach out to me or my team. Yeah.
So you said pre-major students are assigned a pre-major advisor and they can contact them through Navigate?
Yep. Yeah, they are, incoming students are not assigned yet. They will be at the end of the week. But in general, pre-major advisors, they always have at least one official advisor assigned to them that they can use Navigate to go in and make an advising appointment. Or they can just email us anytime and we'll respond that way too. Yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong in this, I understand that UW system-wide has a TRIO grant, but we haven't had TRIO on our campus, and I'm just wondering, with this restructuring, are we also moving to make rooms that our students can serve?
That's a really good question. Do you want to answer that? Well, I don't know if you had specifics. I can give a...
Well, because Seattle has a TRIO grant, we usually aren't competitive, because they... Yeah. I'm not sure. Is coming up for a TRIO? Yeah, and it's system-wide, they decide who gets what, and my students are proud of this stuff. Yeah. Well, that's what we were told last time we applied for a TRIO. It was like, yeah. Anyway, we are starting a new STARS program, which is state-funded for first-generation students, and right now it's targeting students going into STEM because that's our largest group. But yeah, we are looking at possible models where we have advisors, not just by major, but by identities. And so, yeah, and I do continue to look for TRIO-like funding because our Department of Ed keeps telling us, yeah, you'd be okay, but Seattle's a bigger impact for our money. So it's one of those things we're being part of. So I'm surprised actually that Tacoma does. I'll double check. Yeah, because maybe they have some strategies we didn't think about.
Yeah, but with that said, the idea being with this new unit and the rebalancing of workload will allow us to tackle some of these things that we haven't been able to do, either from just a workload standpoint or organizational standpoint. Advisors definitely have power in numbers. Yeah. And so having a group of 25 advisors to all be able to advocate for those kinds of projects and programs, I think will really benefit us in the long run. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how many advisors are there total on campus?
So right now, depending on staffing levels, there's lots of project appointments and things like that, but between 20 and 25 professional full-time advisors. What we try to historically do is give an advisor to student ratio of each advisor having 250 to 300 students, which is manageable but not ideal, especially not for our student population, which may be a little bit more higher touch than other populations. So again, depending on where things land with the organizational structure and the number of staff that we have, we're hoping to bring that down a little bit, including potentially seeing what other staffing options we'll have over the next few years as we probably continue to grow as a campus. Yeah.
So Are the advisors being put into like meta major groups, or is that?
That's what's being decided.
Okay.
So there's probably 4 or 5 major types of systems that are commonly used in units like this, including meta majors or pathways or some other piece. And that's what Cinema and I are working on right now based upon the recommendations from the working group and feedback that we're getting from faculty on what's going to make the most sense for us.
And would students be assigned to an advisor or to a group of advisors?
That's also part of the decision. Yep. Yeah, exactly. There's pros and cons to each. And so we really kind of have to continue to take a look at our numbers and our staffing to see what makes the most sense. But the idea being that even if students were assigned to individual advisors, this setup will allow us to have the backup support that we need when an advisor is out sick or on vacation. Whereas currently, sometimes that means students just have to go on hold until that person comes back. But this kind of unit will allow cross-training for additional support in ways we haven't had historically.
But with the caveat, it's not a generalist model.
Correct.
So not every advisor is going to know all 44 majors. They will either be only biology or in a biology cluster kind of, right? Where biology and biology-like, not just centered around biology, but learns right there. So that, which is more like our meta major structure.
Yeah, we're not going the free-for-all route.
No, we're not.
There are some institutions where that works, but we're not expecting to do that here.
And when the student changes their mind, they stick with the biology group even if they're doing business now?
That's a good question. And so that's going to kind of depend on what we decide the boundaries are, right? Because it may be that they're shifting to another group. It may be that the shifts that they're making are still within the same group, depending on how we divide those up. But even if that's the case, even if they're switching advisors or switching groups, it's going to be a smoother process than it still has been with the advisors siloed in the schools, because they're still going to be part of the advising unit at this point. And it won't have to be that sort of cold handoff that unfortunately we've had to do for so long. Other questions? Well, I appreciate everyone's thoughts and feedback. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me or my team if you have any questions. Just want to see what's going on advising-wise. We're going to continue to keep faculty and folks across campus updated on how our transition is going over the next year. There are the other opportunities for feedback. But then also, as you launch into your courses this year, again, if you have students who need support, if you're not sure where to send them, if you know where to send them and it's us, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to talk with folks and make sure we're getting students the places they need to go.
And I'd also invite, if you hear rumblings from your colleagues, invite them to come talk to us, right? We found that lots of times those rumblings, we can ease their minds or help them feel better about the transition or make a shift because they're bringing up something we hadn't thought about. So Suzanne and I both have office hours. We've seen a lot of staff, but we haven't seen a lot of faculty come ask us questions, and we try not to be scary. We do have these open forums. We have the anonymous feedback form, but our doors are both open, and hopefully you can encourage your colleagues that we're not scary, and we're happy to have a conversation about this. And now is the time, earlier than later, while things are not big. Things are not big.
Right, yeah, exactly. And we're trying to be as transparent about this process as we can. That's a big deal, I think, for the advisors involved right now. They're kind of sitting in a place of uncertainty, so they're a little anxious right now, understandably. Even though we know no one's getting laid off or anything like that, they're going, I don't know what my job is going to look like. And that's a difficult position for anyone to be in. So we're happy to be transparent, answer any questions we can, and hopefully as we move forward over the next couple of months, people start feeling a little bit more secure and really excited about the cool stuff that we're going to be able to do in this unit, again, because of the number of folks that we'll have and the way we'll be able to balance workload and student support. Yeah?
Now that you've said that, I do find that students sometimes say to me, well, I went to advising, it was all very confusing, or I had to talk to 3 different people and it was all kind of confusing. So I'm just a little bit thinking about how they're coming in confused, and the situation in advising sounds a little, maybe like the people there will be a little confused too. So what is our best course of action aside from assuring them that things will work out?
Right, exactly.
I mean, it makes me feel uncomfortable because I know that when I first came into college, university, I was first in family also, and there was just a lot of confusion, and so I figured it out. I survived, and I'm pretty sure they can too. But I guess I'm just kind of wondering what, do you have words to say?
Well, so over the next year, as I mentioned, students will still have an assigned advisor to navigate. And oftentimes we find the students needing the most support who have confusion, the best thing for them to do is to actually just make an appointment. Students don't want to make appointments. Students don't want to come in person. They're more inclined to have a meeting on Zoom. But because it's scary, especially if you're first in family, or you have specific needs to talk about, that might be a difficult conversation. Students are really reluctant to have that one-on-one conversation, but that's when we get the best outcomes. A lot of times a student will send us 3 or 4 separate emails about 3 or 4 different topics that all get an individual response. But had we gotten all of that at one time, we would have been able to better support the whole issue. So a couple things that as faculty we ask that you do is encourage them to make an appointment, tell them we're not scary, that we make mistakes too, and most of us were first in family or have other unique identities and backgrounds that we're bringing to the table that we understand where they're coming from. And if for some reason that's still not working, that's when we really recommend you to reach out to us directly. Tell us who the student is, tell us what's going on. We'll talk a little bit more about Navigate this afternoon, and I'm assuming Wendy's going to talk more about cases and alerts. That's always a pathway to go, but you can always just send us an email and say, hey, I have a big concern about the student. I'm really worried about what's going on, and we'll get things escalated if we need to.
And if you're hearing a general nervousness with your class, we'll also come in and do a presentation in your district report of how to navigate advising. So we're happy to come in for that too.
Thank you. I guess the reason I put my hand up the second time is because I heard that advisors are dealing with 250 to 300 students each, and so another concern is that it sounds like that one-on-one meeting is great because you can get a lot of information and you don't have to do multiple interactions, which would actually be a bigger drag on the advising system as well as the student.
Yep.
Is that
yeah, exactly. And I mean, the 250 to 300 is a little bit of a misnomer because students are so different individually in terms of the amount of help that they need. We may have students that we really never see one-on-one because they know how to do this, but students we need to see every month or every quarter. So we have space for those people. So definitely getting an appointment, which they can usually do within a couple of weeks. They may not be able to get one next day, but within a couple of weeks, they would be able to get an appointment. That's the best way to really tackle some of those complicated student issues. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, are there ways, or if you identify ways that you can share from a faculty can support advocating for more funding for advisors or support growth?
So for the yeah, exactly. Well, one of the best ways really is to kind of keep an ear on what's happening over this next year with this project. For example, these 4 working group reports that came out, these are extensive reports. Some of them I think are 40 pages. We don't need you to sit down and read through all of it, but if you can kind of skim through and keep an eye and an ear to what's going on, that'll be really helpful. And as you have interactions with students where you're like, we need more of this or we need more of that, continue to push that information up to your schools and your deans and your faculty councils and GFO because getting advocacy from them is also really helpful for us. Yeah. Yeah.
I was just going to add that I've seen the peer coaches to be a really great resource for students too, and a lot less scary way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, peer coaches are great. Right now, it's just first-year students who have peer coaches, which is sometimes the only complication, but you all will be dealing mostly with first-year students. So yeah, peer coaching is a great way to go because they've been through the process. Yeah, and the peer coaches and our advisors have really close connections too, where the peer coaches could refer if it gets to the point that it's a little bit out of scope. So that's also another great route to go. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry? I don't know the peer coach caseload off my head. It's much higher, I think. It's close or higher. But the scope of what they do is different. Theirs is much more supportive check-ins and friendly socialization and connection. So yeah, it's a little bit different. Peer coaches are students, so it's as much as they can reasonably do in 5 to 10 hours a week. Yeah. But the peer coaching program is run through orientation and transition programs. And they have a ton, I think, of website information too if you want to learn more.
And students can schedule with their peer coaches an appointment through Navigate as well.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you again. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I appreciate your time and look forward to the next year with y'all.
Yeah.
10-minute break. Now joining us, Wendy Mays, EAD Student Success Manager at Buffalo. Tell us a little bit about Navigate and some of the recent changes.
Yeah. So hello everyone, my name is Wendy Mays, and I'm the EAB Student Success Manager, and I work with Navigate. So I know some of you are new, so I will do a really quick and dirty look at it so that you know what I'm speaking about. A lot of you have done it before. Primarily today I'm going to focus on our progress reports because that is something that you, as FYPP faculty, that you participate in. I have a ton. I'm going to try not to talk too fast, but I was an EASL teacher for 8 years, and I assure you, my students told me I always spoke too fast, which made their English very good, I thought. Yeah, so just a little bit of an introduction about me. As I said, I was an English as second language teacher for 8 years overseas in Japan, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. And then I got into higher education more specifically, and I was in residence life for about 5 years. And then I transitioned to UW where I was working with the care team and with our progress reports, and now I'm working fully with Navigate. So I have a background in a lot of that student support network type thing. So the first thing I want to do is, I'm sorry, I gotta flip around a little bit here. Close. All right, so this is, I am actually taking a look here at, this is Yolanda's site. So when she goes on to Navigate, this is what she sees. Actually, when she first logs in, she sees this, where it'll say staff home, okay? And the first thing you'll want to do is to switch over to your professor home. I'm not going to go through everything here, but just some of the, again, very quick and dirty. So here you have your student list for your courses. You have your, doesn't look right, but that's okay. Let me see what's going on here. Oh, here we go. So you have your students and you have your courses. I don't know what's happening there. Looks a little bit different, but, and there are different things that you can do on here. As far as progress reports, I'll show you how to do that, and then issuing alerts for students. So, and you can also take a look at student profiles. And I just want to do this really quick because earlier, as Suzanne was saying, you can see who the student's advisor is. So this, because this is a new student, she was saying their advisor is not assigned to them yet. So as soon as their advisor is assigned, you would actually see it here. And then you can see who their peer coach is as well. So when you click on the student profile, these are the things that you can see.
Wendy, with the other names, all the other faculty, is that?
Yes, sorry. Yes, thank you. And that was the other faculty they had.
I'm sorry, can you click on that student again?
Sure. So here you can see their peer coach and their instructors. And once they are assigned that advisor, you will also see the advisor that they are assigned right here in your Navigate.
What's going on with those term details? Does that make sense to anyone else?
Is that the schedule students?
It's a student schedule, but yes, but the grades, they automatically populate as this at the beginning of the quarter.
So those are usually classes like run start, they pull in.
Yeah, so so the grades aren't relevant at this time in the quarter.
So what is this student taking right now?
So we can see here the BChem, BCore, BCore, which those are just the different professors, and the BMath.
Okay, so all this English composition and everything else. This student isn't taking 8 classes, right?
No, those classes at the bottom are transferred in like from the start.
Okay, I've never seen that before.
Yeah. So I don't want to spend too much time on this just because you can reach out to me and I have a whole training that I can take you through. And I know that you're like, oh my goodness, a whole training. I can do it fast. We can do it in 15 minutes. We can do it in 30 minutes. We can really spend our time. So there's a, I can show you all of this, so I don't want to spend too much of our time here. I really want to talk about our progress reports. But I just wanted you, because it was referred to earlier, I wanted to make sure you knew what that looked like, right? So, and the only thing that you really need to see here on the student's profile is also this issue and alert, because we'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to go back to Yolanda's profile, her professor profile here. You can see her students and issue and alert. I don't know why it's not showing her courses. Oh, here. Okay. And still something missing there, but again, I will have all of this a printout for all of you. For on the first day of classes, I will send out a printout with just some screenshots from yours highlighting different things on your actual page that you can access, and then very much going through exactly how to do a progress report. Part of the reason I didn't bring it today is because they, to do the screenshots, the progress report doesn't populate until the first day of classes. So to get screenshots for this quarter and the changes that we've made for this year, I have to wait till the 27th. So I will get all that done that first day and make sure that it's out to you step by step how to do all this, to how to get to your profile, the things that you can see on your profile, and then how to navigate as far as progress reports and issuing alerts.
Could you define what a progress report is?
Yes, so that is all right. So this is the biggest thing I think that I really want to hit on today is our alerts in Navigate. So in Navigate, alerts are a way to draw attention to a student who might be at risk or in need of support. Alerts create a virtual referral and promote action from another department. So we actually have two different types of alerts in Navigate. We have our progress report alerts, which again, FYPP classes you will do, and you have a handout, we'll discuss that a little bit more. And then you have what are ad hoc alerts that you can also do, right? So progress reports proactively request feedback about student performance in your courses at strategic times during the quarter in order to identify potential barriers to success and provide additional support. And there are multiple ways that you can get to your progress report. You'll be emailed when the progress report goes out. You'll actually see a yellow banner across the top of your page to get to your progress report. And then there's also another link by your courses. Again, I will have screenshots, circles, highlights, arrows, make it very clear. Ad hoc alerts can be submitted at any time in the quarter. They're a way to draw attention to a student who might be at risk for a variety of reasons. To create a virtual referral, to provide a student with resources, or prompt action from another department. So we have actual list of alerts, and then we have a list of referrals. Some of those alerts are emails, and referrals are just emails to the student, pointing them to the right sources with links and so forth. Some of them open actual cases, which means there's someone on the other end that is responding. There's an intervention taking place. And then there's a number of ways that you can access those on the student's profile, from your professor list, and then from your professor homepage, and then from your assigned student list. Again, I'll make sure I show all of that.
So quick question, so when we do an alert or in a progress report, we find a student that's really needing attention, do they automatically go to a peer coach first? And do they have to go through that step before it gets referred up to an advisor?
So I'll go over for the progress reports exactly how that works. For the ad hoc referrals, they're referred to the appropriate resource for that. So we're actually going to go ahead and go to this one. Let me pull that up really quick. Yes.
In addition to the alerts, which are super helpful, the progress reports for students who are doing well are very good too. When I meet with a student, I look through their history, and if I can see they have kudos from their professor, I can say, oh, I see that professor in my class said that you're doing
Yeah, I'm excited.
How are you doing that class? And so it's a really great way to kind of be a conversation starter. So if you ever think I just need to focus on the alerts, sometimes those progress reports are really helpful for us too.
So I had a question about that actually. Do the students get notified if they get a kudos? I mean, like, is an email generated to them or anything? Or does it
Yes. And I'll go over all that right now. So hopefully you all can see that. Okay. So progress reports are actually a cultivated list of reasons and alerts in times during the quarter. The reason for that is capacity. We only have so much capacity. So if every time every professor had a concern about a student, they're like, help, help, right? We only have so many people that can reach out. Now, that doesn't mean that an ad hoc alert, which is our other list of reasons, and again, you will get screenshots of all of this, it will be very clear, can be put in at any time. But for the progress reports, we're trying to be very strategic about what are the different things that happen throughout the quarter, what is the capacity to make sure that we have the staff on the other end to actually do an intervention. Because what we don't want to happen is to say, hey, help this student, and then it goes into a big void, right? We don't want that to happen. So we need to make sure that we have an actual intervention pathway, right? And the capacity to do that intervention. So for progress reports, what we do is we have 4 progress reports a quarter. So the first progress, and for those of you who have done them in the past, you'll see that there's some changes. We did a faculty focus group at the end of last year, and we tried to take a lot of that information and kind of do some updates on our progress reports. So there'll be some changes, but a lot of familiarity as well. So one of the first changes was just kind of the naming. Week 1, week 3, week 6, week 10 kind of meant nothing. It was just a marker in the quarter, right? So I tried to rename them, and what are we trying to pinpoint? What are we trying to get at? So for the start of the quarter, we're really trying to identify students that have not established a presence in the class or students that are missing the necessary technology of course materials, right? We want to make sure they're present there, present, have their technology, have a computer there, have the course materials, right? The goal is the intervention that assists students to establish consistent presence and get those things. So there's only 3 alert reasons that are available for this. The attendance not established, technology access, limited access to technology, and missing course textbooks or supplies. You'll see the 2 here at the bottom are automated emails. The limited access to technology is actually an email that sends them to the emergency funds. So they can request financial assistance to if they have a computer, that they need a computer or whatever, they can get assistance with that. Missing course textbooks and supplies is the same thing. Oh, sorry. Limited access to technology, take that back, is to IT to request a loaner computer. Missing course textbooks and supplies is to emergency fund. So one of the feedback that I got during the faculty focus group was that often students will get like a 2-week test trial of like whatever the course, the supply is that they need for the class, right? And so professors often weren't finding out until week 3 or 4 that they didn't actually have it any longer, have access to it, right? So for that reason, it's also in the second column here. So the only one that opens a case that has a person on the other side is this attendance not established. Now, this is defined by you and how you do attendance in your class. So if you're not taking attendance, right, but you're trying to get a sense of whether or not the student is present based on how much they've logged into Canvas or things like this, right? So I'm not defining your attendance not established. That's really defined by you, right? But if something's coming up and you're concerned you're not seeing that student in whatever way that you've put forward for them to show up, this is your alert. As a first-year student, this is going to go to a peer coach. The reason that we have it to the peer coach is that we've actually found the anecdotally, right? When things would go to the advisors, especially this first quarter, the student would actually reach out to the peer coach and say, why is my advisor emailing me? What do they want? Am I in trouble? What's going on here, right? And so because they've already created that relationship with their peer advisor, the peer advisor is the ones taking on these cases. And they're not trained to solve the problem. They're trying to get them to the right resource, right? To listen, to hear what is the trouble, what's going on, and to get them to where they need to be. So ultimately, they may end up pointing them to their advisor, referring them to their advisor, if that's necessary. But they have other methods, and they're very well trained on it. So now we're going into our week 3, or our second progress report. And this is called support resources, right? So For this one, we're really trying to identify students that are struggling and may need additional campus support resources to improve their ability to succeed in the course. So like the WAC, QSC, Academic Success Coach, right? So now we're really trying to hone in. Hopefully we've established they have a presence or not, okay? Maybe their 2-week trial for their course material expired and now you're hearing about that again, right? So this alert is available. But we really want to get them to the resource to help them succeed in the class, right? So if they're struggling with a skill, then where can we get them the help that they need? So you will see there's only one alert that opens a case that goes to a person on the other side. And that's low participation or academic performance. And I'll talk to you a little bit about why we have these limited number of reasons, and there is a philosophy behind that as well. So I'll get to that in just a moment. The guides go to your peer coaches, or they go to Cynthia, who is our academic success coach, who's our second year. Then we come into our week 6, and now we are trying to identify, for most of you, this is probably after your midterms. Hopefully you've had time to grade your midterms if you have them, right? You have a pretty good sense, right? Is this student on a path to successfully complete this class, or is this student in danger of not completing this class, right? And so we're trying to get them, they're now going to go to their academic advisors, and the goal is to get a plan with their academic advisor, like what do you need to do to complete this class successfully, right? So we have 2 alert reasons that open a case: the missing critical assignments, in danger of not passing the course, right? So you may say, okay, at this point, the student is missing some pretty significant assignments, but I don't really know that I can say that they're in danger of not passing, but if they keep on this path, right, it could happen. So you just choose missing critical assignments, right? You're looking at their test grades, you're looking at their missing homework potentially, right? And you're saying, I'm really concerned that this student may not pass. So then we're choosing this danger not to pass. And then we come to week 10, and now you probably know exactly more or less where your students stand. Yes?
Can I just ask you a quick question? Passing, many students think that 2.0 is passing. Generally, 0.0 is 0.67 is passing. When you think passing, what are you thinking here?
We are thinking they have another course that they need to take coming out of this one, right?
So the 0.0 is not passing, and 0.7 is passing.
Cinnamon?
Yeah, I mean, for Discovery Corps, any student who doesn't get above a 2.5, we're probably worried about them.
Okay, say that again.
For Discovery Corps, if they're not getting a 2.5, we're probably worried about them, because usually something else is happening in their life, because those classes are usually fairly supportive. Students are getting support from you all and getting through it. So if they're not, if they're missing a lot of stuff, there's probably something else happening in their life. So I would be worried about anybody in Discovery Corps not at 2.0. Now for some of the science and math classes, I'll let you all decide what you think is passing, but I think Wendy makes a point. If you know they need to have a certain grade to move on to the next class, that's probably what you consider as passing.
Yeah, and because these are so cultivated is all right, and I will discuss the next part of this, which is the comments part in the actual progress report. It's okay to err on the side of like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure I'm defining passing here, right? Because you'll be able to put that in the comment, what you mean by that, right? And then that directs the intervention that comes, the conversation with the advisor later, right? So now, week 10, we pretty much know where the student stands. We've kept the danger of not passing the course just because I know some professors, feedback was some of the professors do let them turn everything in at the end of the quarter, right? So you're like, I don't know, they could pull a rabbit out of a hat and get everything turned in and we're good. Or, so if you feel like that is a comfortable place for you, again, the comment, you will expand on what that means so the advisor knows how to follow up. Or they cannot pass the course, right? And the whole premise behind this is that the advisor can reach out and have a conversation with the student about, okay, whatever happened this quarter, right? Let's get you back on the path. We want to make sure that a student is not stopping out, right? We want to make sure that these proactive conversations are happening And they're not waiting until after their grade comes out and they're like, oh, I failed, I was already registered, I don't know, forget about it, you know.
Yeah, and students can now change to SNS up to the last day of class. So this is a great way for advisor to have that conversation with them. But the advisor needs to have that conversation because it could impact their financial aid or other things. So it's something that you shouldn't be telling students to do, but you want an advisor to talk to about their options. Yeah.
Do you find that it's more effective for the instructors who have this conversation
Yes.
with the student first before they refer them on?
Yes, and I was gonna hit on that a little bit, but we'll stop and talk about it now. Yes. So here's the thing, is we have where our interventions go, right? The intervention actually starts with you. Twofold. One, that you've had a conversation with the student. Two, that you've put in an alert. Now, a conversation with a student, we talked about this during the faculty focus group. We're on a 10-week quarter. Things move fast, right? You're like, so if I try to email the student and then I wait for their response and then like time could already pass, you're already into the next progress report, it's already closed, right? So they were talking a little about, some of the professors were talking about how they do it simultaneously, right? They'll send an email to the student or a Canvas message or whatever, right? Saying, hey, I'm concerned about blah, blah, blah. Just so you know, I let your advisor know and they may be reaching out to you as well, okay? So it's really up to you what you're most comfortable with if you want to really hear back from the student, but because that compacted timeline, I think doing it together, we just don't want to sneak attack the students because it really puts their guard up when that advisor reaches out to them, right? Like, oh my God, am I in trouble? What happened, right? Whereas when it's coming in a conversation with their professor, then you can be, you know exactly what is the problem and how they can remedy it, right? Or what they can start to do to remedy it. So this is the basic timeline of our progress reports, kind of the intention, who we want to identify, the goal, the exact list of reasons. So again, this is a very cultivated list, right? When you do ad hoc, you'll see that there's a much longer list. And again, you'll get a printout of that, so you can see that in the future. And then who is addressing the progress report? Yes?
I need to put a face with the name, but I'm the guy that always waits until like 3 days after the report ended, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot to do it for the progress report. But am I seeing those dates correctly? The progress reports are going to be open now for beyond like that week. And I think you had already done this last year.
Yes.
But so now they're really the report's open for a while until the next report is.
Yes. So based on the feedback that I got during the faculty focus group, the timeline has changed a little bit. And one thing that I will make sure that is happening this year is I can actually email out 2 days before the end. And if you haven't turned it in yet, remind you, right? And then, okay, gosh, I have so much more to cover. But there's actually, so I'll visit that now. All right, so there's actually 3 ways to turn in your progress report, right? Now, I told you there's different ways to access it, through the email link that you got, through the yellow banner, or next to your course, you'll see a little, so it'll say the name of your course on your homepage, and then over here it'll say progress report, okay? Now, in the progress report, if you scroll down to the bottom, oh dear. Oh no. Okay.
Betty, will you share that with the Zoom?
Yes, sorry. Is it not sharing?
Just share the whole screen.
There we go. Okay. So what I really want you to understand is if you scroll down to the bottom, and again, I'll have new screen, the language has changed a little bit on this. That's why I wanted to update your screenshots for you. On the first day of classes, I will new screenshot everything and get that to you. So there are 2 options, right? You can turn in the entire report, or you can do one at a time, and you just one at a time, and then you click after each one. Or say you do a group of 3, right? So you get the progress report the first day, and you're like, 3 people come to my head, I want to get this done with now, right? I don't see a lot changing in the next 2 weeks, right? So you're going to do those 3, you click here. That leaves your progress report open for you to go back and continue, right? Or you can sit down and do it all at one time if you like, right? And then you would do everything, and then you would click the last button. Or say that you have had those proactive conversations with your students, you've heard back from them, you're like, we're good, right? Like I addressed the issues that we had, and so then you fill out, you have nothing to fill out, that's okay, you put notes, and you click done, okay? The third way that you can do it is they've now created an ability for you to do an ad hoc progress report. And again, that's on your home screen, course, and then where it says this progress report, you would click there. So say you're like, I'm on top of things, first week, I'm done, turn it in, second week, oh crap. Someone here is on my radar. No problem. You go to your home screen, you go to the course, you go over to where it says progress report, you click that there, you can choose your student and do it ad hoc. So those same alert reasons with the same event intervention pathways will be available to you.
It says submit an alert, right?
Nope, so submit an alert is ad hoc. This one is actually different. It says progress report. And again, I'll have the screenshots for you. So hopefully it should be, I think, as I was playing around with it, it was pretty clear to me. So I think it'd be the same. So we're just going to go back one more because the other thing that I really, really, really want to stress to you. So this is the email that you would receive. At the bottom of this email would be the link to your progress report. Okay? This email changes each of the progress reports that you get. It doesn't change tremendously, but it does help you remind you what are we focusing on, right? But here's the part that I really want you to look at. Now, I did learn during our faculty focus group that the little text box for your comment does not expand. I'm very sorry. Had I known. So that is something that we put in a request to navigate. Unfortunately, that's a bigger back-end thing. So what we have to do is go out to other schools and be like, tell them you want it too. Tell them you want it too. So that is something that we're working on, is that becomes an expandable box. So I understand until then, what you're having to do is probably type it on a separate Word doc or whatever and cutting and pasting it over. But the most important thing, the key to any alert, whether it be ad hoc, progress report, it doesn't matter. The key to using Navigate Alerts is the comment. Because if an intervention needs to take place, the best way to be able to intervene is armed with knowledge, right? So if the advisor knows missing critical assignments and you've listed what those 3 critical assignments are, the advisor can have a conversation specifically about those assignments, right? So I ask you for 3 things. They don't have to be long paragraphs. They don't even have to be like complete sentences. I don't care. Just some sort of information to really make sure that that intervention is meaningful for what that student is experiencing, okay? So the first thing is describe the concern or issue, right? So if you're saying danger of not passing, why is that, right? And maybe you don't need to do a really long, you can do a general, right? Missing too many assignments, right? The other thing you can also do is say, missing too many assignments, please contact me, right? And then the advisor will reach out to you so they can get more information. Now, do know that adds an extra step and it adds more time. So the more you can put it into the comment, the quicker this process goes, right? But I do understand that sometimes it's complicated. So to ask the advisor to reach out to you is totally acceptable. I would say we want to do that probably a little bit less with the peer coaches, right? Early in that quarter. But as far as like reach back out to me, but describing the concern for the peer coaches is also gold because it really helps them be able to connect and have that really meaningful conversation, right? Note any outreach you've had. So this is where emailed student in Canvas, right? You don't need to be verbose if you want to. I mean, nobody's going to complain. Just what has happened so that we know. Because then this also helps the advisor know that they're not like kind of blindsiding the student, right? And they can refer back to, hey, your professor said that they emailed you in Canvas. Did you take a look at that email, right? And then list any information that that should be relayed to the student by their assigned support team. So for example, if you're saying missing critical assignments, right? Missing research project, right? That was due 2 weeks ago. A student has 1 week to make up, right? Or dates. Like, the more specific you can be, again, the more powerful the intervention. A lot of times what happens is that these alerts will come to the advisors and they'll be like, I know they're missing critical assignments, I know nothing else. So then they have to try to get it out of the student, right? Or they have to, if they already know the issue, then they can start actually problem solving with the student, making a plan. How can I assist you? Who can I direct you to that can better assist you, right? If there is a barrier, right, then how can we build in, like, addressing that barrier, but also getting those assignments in, right? So I think the biggest thing, my time is quickly dwindling here, is this. The key to any successful intervention for an alert is your comments. So if you take anything away today, okay, 2 things. 1, this, and 2, please close your progress report. So if you have nobody at risk, that's perfectly great. We're excited, woo, right? If you've addressed it or you just don't have any students struggling at that point in the quarter, going in to the bottom, clicking that blue button and submitting that progress report is so helpful for us, right? And it creates really good data that we can see how successful these progress reports are.
Wendy, who sees the comments? The peer coaches see the comments, or is it just you, advisors?
So yes, so anybody that a case is assigned to, so it would be the peer coaches or advisors or Cynthia, can see the comments. The students cannot see the comments, right? So it would be perfectly acceptable if, or I shouldn't, I don't know, that was a little condescending, sorry. But if you decided to email the student in Canvas, if you cut and paste similar things into the comment of your progress report, that would be fine, right? Because the advisor knows what's happening, or the peer coach, the student knows what's happening, right? So that could be maybe a quicker, more meaningful way.
What's the timeline between us issuing an alert and the outreach happening?
So they're supposed to happen between 2 to 3 days. It depends on capacity again. So if an advisor is getting a ton, it just happens that a particular advisor is getting a ton of these. Also, that timeline is a little bit tricky. We're in these compacted 10-week quarters, right? So the advisors are making appointments to get students registered and getting alerts, right? So they're building that. They're trying to build that into their schedule so that they can address them quickly.
I would just add, like, your comments are really important to somebody like me. When a student gets on my radar, I'm on the care team, and other reasons students get on my radar, and I go and if I see there's lots of alerts and similar things happening and patterns start. And we can also pull data, like a student has more than one alert or more than one class. These are things that get on our radar to do a little more intensive support for that student. So it's important.
So just in my last few minutes here, just a few odds and ends. There is a new hand raise feature in Navigate, and this actually permits the student to self-report. So they can self-report if they would like someone to reach out to them, so if they want to talk about financial stuff, if they want to. That will probably be coming online later this quarter, definitely winter quarter, and we will definitely let you know. But the great thing is you can also, it's just another tool you have in your toolbox when you're having conversations with students. Hey, can I put in a referral for you? Oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. Okay, but you know, you can go into Navigate and you can actually put in your own referral through hand raise. So it's just another tool in the toolbox.
Is there some sort of way that we could student view Navigate in our classrooms to show students what it looks like and where that is?
Yes.
How to do that?
The student app, yes. Yes and no. We don't, okay. Yes, but we don't have like a fake student, right?
But we're working on it.
But we're working on it. So I may be able to find a workaround, since you've asked it, something I can follow up. I may be able to find a workaround. If I can't, then it's coming, right? But yes, there is a way that you can actually project up here the student app, or this, it would actually, you could either plug in your phone and do the app, or you could just go to the desktop version of the app, right? And then that would show them and be able to go through all the features that they have there in that hand raise. The other thing that,
and all of our first year students downloaded the app because they couldn't register. They had to as part of orientation, so they all have the Navigate app.
Yeah, so for first year students, even the second year students, because almost all of them were doing it last year, because this is something that the peer coaches actually hold the students accountable to during orientation, that they've downloaded the app. So all first and second years really should have it downloaded. So if they're like, I don't know how to make an appointment with my advisor, go to your app. It's all right there.
When you send us screenshots, can you send us screenshots of that? Because I often find that my professor view has nothing to do with what the students are seeing.
Yeah.
And I try to tell them to do stuff, and I'm like, you just go to the obvious button on the right-hand side. Oh, psych, yours is like under this other thing that I don't know anything about.
To get some student views.
Okay, yeah, we'll get some student views, right? And we do have our Navigate strategic leader was just on campus a few weeks ago. And so we do have an actual working group for a lot of this, the student app, and trying to get a lot of this stuff up and going and really not just really accessible to the students, but also something that we can make accessible to you all, like those screenshots or whatever, so that you can show it in class and talk about it more in classes.
Actually, as a stopgap between having an actual student that I can show on the screen, just having some screenshots of the students.
Okay.
What it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is that we do have a lot of these materials on a SharePoint, but they're all behind a password. So some of you are able to get there, some of you aren't. It's a mess. So that is something that this year that I will be working on, is really cultivating this website for all of you with all these access materials, right? So it would have this for you, so you can go back and refer to the thing that I said that I will send out on first day of classes with all the screenshots, step by step, how to use all of that, right? So that is something that's going to be under development this year, and maybe I'll get it rolled out sooner during the year. If not, definitively by next year, you will have a really solid, and when I'm standing up here, we'll be changing around screens, I will be at a website, clicking around.
And you're also available, right?
Yes, and that was my last one, yeah. So that was my last thing, is that I will have office hours every Wednesday this year. I'm thinking they're going to be between 11 and 1. So I am happy to come to your office if I'm on campus. I'm happy to do a Zoom. I'm happy to do it quick and dirty. I'm happy to spend time with you. Like whatever it is you need, I'm here to assist you. And email me. I do get a lot of emails throughout the year, just professors being like, I missed the deadline, or like just different questions that they have. Like no question is outrageous to me because I'm still in the learning curve. There's just so much always growing and developing and being added to Navigate, right? So I am happy. Please feel free to email me. And if you have any questions, and if you want to set up a time, I am happy to assist. And yeah, I'm super excited for this next year. Also, if you have any feedback, I will, at the very end of the year, I will send out another probably faculty survey to get additional feedback. I do expect with our advising model change that we actually will see probably some of the most substantial change with progress reports because we need everything to align, right? And so all of that will be, as things are answered and we develop things, we'll be communicating them, and I'm sure I'll be back next year to share any of those. But if along the way you have feedback, like it's really great for me to hear. Like I did not know that the text box did not expand. So I was like, why can't these faculty put a comment? Well, now I know. I suck. So, and same thing, I'd always put the due dates in the email, and then come to find, at the end of the email, come to find out, you don't see half the email title. So these are really great things that I don't, because I'm not faculty, so I can go in and do some impersonation and be able to see some things, but it's not always obvious to me to look for. So please give me your feedback. That's the best way that I can adapt and really evolve, navigate in our use. I think just a minute or two, yeah.
A couple of us were commenting on the fact that we were surprised we could get so much information about the students, like their addresses and their phone numbers, and we felt that that was kind of big brotherish, and in an atmosphere where we're trying to build up trust with these students, where do the students know we have that access? And I mean, because I felt kind of queasy about it.
I can't stop looking, actually. Now that I saw it, I was like, well, I was just going back to like students I submitted reports to 2 years ago. How are they doing? Oh, here's all the classes they've taken and all the grades they've gotten. Here's their home address and home email and their cell phone. And
It feels a bit invasive, but do they know? I mean, if they know, then I guess I feel okay, but I mean, I guess.
Yeah, they know, and you know, it's like everything else with FYPP, you may see their grades, but you don't tell. Like, this is stuff that you use sparingly, and with great knowledge comes great responsibility, right? So.
And there was a conversation during implementation. Faculty sat on implementation, and they actually, what you're seeing is actually very limited. And that was by choice. The faculty at that time chose that they wanted to keep it very limited. That was something I brought up during the faculty focus group, because when you send in an alert, right, all you will get back is an email with a case closed reason, which are pretty generic, right? And potentially that's it. There is an opportunity for advisors and stuff to leave a note now and for you to see that. But until the new advising model is implemented, you know, there's going to be sporadic use of that, right? So a lot of faculty are like, I don't know, I feel like my alert just went into a big deep hole. Like, I assure you it didn't. There's stuff happening in the background, right? So that was something I brought up during the faculty focus group. Do you want more access, right? And at first I got yes, and then as we talked more, I got no. So I think we're still at that same place. Again, if you do have concerns that maybe it's too much and it wants to be revisited, we can always speak with someone and we can see if there's a forum to discuss that more.
I guess it was just that I was wondering also, you know, sometimes I do submit an alert and multiple alerts, and then, you know, I get the email message back, you know, that they couldn't establish contact or whatever. But if I have their, you know, their phone number, it's pretty tempting to want to pick up the phone, but I should not do that, correct?
No, I mean, one of our strategies, they usually email first, then they text or call, so they've already used that phone.
their home address, too. No, I know you have a child in my philosophy class, and I just wanted to talk to you about it.
I mean, out of curiosity, how many of you, and maybe it's changed, I don't know, how many of you as professors provide a phone number for your students to contact you or text you?
Personal one?
I don't know, maybe you have a phone number.
I have a Discord server, which is basically a phone number.
So, I mean, I know when I was in college, the idea of having a professor's phone number was like, oh my God, insane. But then when I taught college success at community college a few years ago, right, it was, a lot of the professors did that. And I was like, are you kidding me? They can text me at any moment. This is scary. So, I mean, I think it's just evolving how comfortable we are with these different types of communication and modems and access, right?
I just want to make an appeal to remove addresses again, because we know that faculty stalk students, harass students. Like I didn't realize that we had access to that.
So it's all one thing. It would have to all be removed, and I think
which is we all.
So the phone number, the address, the student email, all of it. So
Yeah,
again, that is, but then you have no access to the student email either. Yeah, so it's,
we can revisit it.
Yeah, we can revisit it.
And she didn't know how the person knew where she lived, and now I know.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, students cannot see this of each other.
No,
Yeah.
they're being stalked by that.
Oh, not great. So definitely, if it is something that you would like to bring up, I encourage you to reach out to Cinnamon, right? And the conversation can continue to be had, right? Because every campus is different, and there are a lot of campuses that actually provide more information to the professors, right? Feeling that, and there is a difference. On a lot of other campuses, your professors are FYPP trained. So it's very clear to them the accountability that they have regarding student information. On our campus, we've chosen that faculty are not FYPP trained, right? Which is part of the reason that it is, there's not as much of the other.
Wasn't this stalker FYPP trained though? So I will say that the one piece of information that I do love is being able to see what other classes they're taking this quarter and whether they have alerts on those other classes as well. I agree 100% personal information I think is something that we shouldn't have access to. The one thing I wanted to bring up is that I tried twice to contact this person, then it didn't work, and now I'm closing your case. Usually by the time that I've gotten to the point where I'm like, help me, this student is completely AWOL. I don't know, I feel like in that case where we haven't been able to connect, all of those feel very, there's no conclusion for me.
Yeah, and it's hard because students are adults, right?
Yeah.
So we can't go show up at their door.
Right.
We legally can't. And so if we tried to email or text and call them, those other
And I do want to say, if something is heightened to the point where you're like, I'm concerned that they're like the student is well, right? Like I'm concerned, then we can do the care team, right? Refer through the care team, right? But because the same thing was feeling the big brother about the information being, that you can see the information. On that flip side, advisors feel like they're adults. If they don't want to get back to me, there's nothing I can do about it except for hunt them down. And that's big brother to, they feel like that's big brother. I have to let them make the choices they're going to make, right? So I do want to encourage you, if you have, there's 2 ways to make a care team. In your Navigate, if you go to ad hoc, which is that issue and alert. So you'll see the issue and alert, it's on your page, it's on the student's page, right? Issue and alert, you'll see a non-academic well-being. Now, again, FYPP, keep it short and sweet and view on details, okay? But you can say, I'm very concerned for the student, I'd like the care team to reach out to them, right? And then what would happen is that it would be moved over to care team, and a care team member would probably reach out to you to get more information, right? Or you can go directly to the care team link, which is on the counseling page, the UW Bountiful counseling page. You'll see a care team, and you can submit it. In that submission, there's a big long box. You can write out and be as detailed as you need to there.
I feel like this is worth repeating. I'm thinking about the language around for sexual assault and relationship violence survivors. You're saying in these, even in this alert report, we don't want to be like, this student disclosed to me a sexual assault or something. Not even, like, this just needs to be, they need some help. And then through other means, we would communicate with the person disclosed after following, all the protocols we've already learned around responding to.
Yeah. So you can differentiate just so that the care team, if you're not disclosing information, you're going to differentiate emergency versus concern, right? So that would just be in your language, right? I've spoken to the student, I'm concerned about their well-being. I've spoken to the student, they've disclosed things that are concerning me about their well-being, right? Like, so just you can determine a language that's like, I'm just concerned, please reach out to them. You can reach out to me, I can tell you what I know. Or I don't know, I'm just very concerned, right? Like I haven't seen them, they dropped off the radar, I'm really concerned. Okay. They've disclosed something to me of a serious nature, please reach out to the student or reach out to me for more information, reach out to the student. But that care team is where that type of thing would live.
This is for you and probably Cinnamon. I want to go back to what Laura just said. She just said a student was being stalked by a professor who likely got the address through this. And it was just when you said taking away the address also gets rid of the email address. That's not the only way we can get the student's email address.
This isn't the only way you can get the student's address too. So just coming back to the starting, if you want a student's address, there's lots of ways that you can get to you.
I know, we could all
So yeah, so
it's pretty hard to stay private anywhere. But just to, I mean, the comment can't be lost. That's horrible. That's horrible information. It can't just be dropped, and I'm sure it's very hard to remove pieces of the information that we see here, but I think it's worth investigating. They don't. I think it is important to see what other classes they have and blah blah blah. I'm interested in what high school they went to. Obsessed with that for whatever reason. I don't know.
All right.
Just not to mention that it's really upsetting that we have public stock.
It is very upsetting. I just want to mention that I went to a training yesterday that the Office of the Title IX Coordinator has a new reporting form. So if you learn of stalking, you can, as a third party, report that to the Office of Title IX and make a follow-up.
And I'm guessing, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm guessing it'll live in the safe place on the counseling page where the care team report lives as well. So again, unfortunately we're out of time. I took too much. I still didn't get through half of what I wanted, so I'm sorry. But reach out to me, please. So I am happy to help with anything, any questions you have, any feedback. I really appreciate you guys doing the progress reports. I cannot tell you how impactful they have been for so many students. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Wendy. Now we're going to hear from Deborah Hathaway, who's the Director of Learning and Teaching.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah Hathaway, and I'm the Director of Learning and Teaching, and I work with a wonderful team that's here also, Todd Conway and Kim Swenson. But I'm actually going to be talking about something related to, me. I mean, I don't know if I can double me. So I'm actually going to be talking about something that is related to the Tri-Campus and help to facilitate some feedback. Feedback's going to be something you're going to hear a lot about from me over this year. And so I'm going to start today with this. And there is a video, but I'm going to, because we're really short on time, I'm going to try to provide a very quick overview. But I do want to provide the access to that if you want to be able to hear a little bit more in depth about the process. But just to give a quick overview, that's the video, that's the link. So it's okay because it's 7 minutes long, so I think that maybe I'll just try to summarize it. So about 1.5 years ago, the Provost and the Faculty Senate leadership asked a group of faculty and student leaders to think about the future of teaching and learning. So coming out of the pandemic, there was a sort of, obviously a sense that things had changed and we wanted to really sort of revisit what is the future of teaching and learning and how are we going to be moving in the direction of innovation. So based on recommendations from that group, the Provost prioritized focusing on instructional quality and worked with Faculty Senate to convene a working group. So they were charged with, and I'm reading this just to be really clear and specific about what it was that happened, so just everyone so you know. Establishing a shared language, common criteria, and processes to promote and achieve quality instruction across modalities. So what I'm sharing with you today is an opportunity to provide some feedback on that. So there is, and you're going to see it on the form that I'm going to hand out in a second, but essentially what I'm going to share with you is some draft language around what good teaching is at UW. So I've only been a part of this process, so there's two groups, a group focusing on access and a group focusing on instructional quality. I only started getting involved in this when I started in this position in January, so I was in a group around student evaluations. Cinnamon's been in this particular group that's around what good teaching looks like and how we can talk about good teaching. And so I want to also share that the language on here is intentionally broad because it's meant to be a way to sort of gather everyone regardless, again, of discipline or like different context or campus, because again, it's a tri-campus idea or a framework. And so part of what we're looking for today is to get some feedback on that draft language. And again, in the video, there's again, in-depth more information about what the whole process was. But the core, what's been created at this point, the draft, is the core elements of good teaching at UW are the following. This is how it's basically shared out, that it is aligned. So I'll read through them and then you're gonna see them on this sheet as well. Good teaching is organized to help students meet course learning outcomes. It is inclusive. Good teaching values students' experiences and creates opportunities for each student to succeed. It is active and engaged. Good teaching creates opportunities for students to engage with ideas and each other. It is growth-oriented. Good teaching uses formative assessment and feedback to help students grow their abilities. And lastly, it is relevant. So good teaching helps prepare students for future learning and life after graduation. So this draft is built, again, from different faculty input, different language that already exists at UW, peer models, but obviously much more input is needed. That's where everyone in this room comes in to provide some of that input. Now, in terms of like, Cinnamon can share a little bit more too around the process, but what we're looking for is sort of, what do you think about these draft elements? What do you like? What do you dislike? What edits would you like to propose? And if there are additional core elements that you see like are really missing from this list, what might they be? And kind of trying to capture some of that. So what I'm hoping to do too is to provide these worksheets which have the outline of the draft language on it. And then with each one, there's a question for each around with the specific piece. What do you dislike or like about it? And what is any suggestions that you have around it? So each one has that. We're hoping that there can be some discussion around it, right? So like within your tables and groups, you can kind of look at it, read through it together, maybe have a conversation, and have one person ideally jot down some notes on the feedback form. Another thing that I want to share out with this that we've spoken about in conversation is part of the idea around this is thinking about, obviously, I'm sure you're wondering, well, how might this be used? Well, one thing to consider is that when we have conversations on campus around peer evaluations, around student evaluations, around ways in which we are teaching, like how we define good teaching, what this is helping to ideally achieve is, in a way, thinking about how we have something that we can use as a backdrop or a way to have those conversations around. So if anyone has been in a previous position where there were certain values or things that you were looking to achieve within that role, that you would have something to align where you were, how you understood your teaching. So I know some of us have, or some faculty have shared with me around when they have someone doing a peer evaluation for them, sort of like they're watching their class, maybe providing some particular feedback around what their experience was in being in that class with that faculty member from their own lived experiences, their own teaching, or their own recommendations of what good teaching looks like, which is helpful. Or maybe they're just observing it and commenting about what they saw. But with something like this, it could be used in a way where we can think, oh, well, we have something to sort of use as a way to have a conversation around. Or perhaps, if we say, something that I am really striving for as a faculty member is to be more inclusive, like inclusivity is a goal of mine. I can speak to that in the way I talk about my teaching. And I could use this as a way to sort of think through what I'm doing and what my goals are in the future. So I'm hoping that that kind of gives a little bit more of a sense of sort of intention behind not just saying this is what good teaching is and why, but rather like how we talk about it with each other in the ways in which, and ideally too, in the ways in which we may be evaluating in different or assessed in different ways, so that there's a sense of consistency across, and there's a way that we can sort of align our own goals and not take, the idea of, getting that one bad student evaluation and going, I'm a horrible instructor, but rather knowing like, oh, I had these particular goals that I can see in my student evaluations that I am meeting those goals in alignment with inclusivity, as opposed to just feeling like that one student, that one negative student evaluation is really making us feel awful about like what our progress is and what we're striving to achieve in the class. So that's something that I feel could be a really valuable part of this process, is to have something that helps us better define and have conversations amongst each other and with our students around what is good teaching. Cinnamon, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think the other thing I would just mention, there is a student evaluation team, and they're waiting for our feedback on this to inform redesigning our student evaluations.
Yes.
And again, it's alignment. It's alignment with the resources. Deb and other people across the Tri-Campus Support Teaching and Learning, it's alignment of how we do evaluations of ourselves and each other. Yep. It's alignment with the student evaluations. It's alignment with resources, so that we sort of have a common language. And then I guess the other thing is that I've, because I am on the working group, I have done this exercise with many different faculty groups, none at Bothell yet. And the conversations are interesting. And I said, how do we get in front of the best faculty at Bothell? And I said, the fit faculty. So we purposely chose you all because we know you all are really thoughtful about teaching. And I'm so excited to hear your feedback and also have you have these conversations about what good teaching is across your tables. Like we've already learned today that we have a lot of great researchers here. So hopefully you'll also learn something from doing this as well. And we will be bringing this to other campus groups at Bothell. So you guys are so lucky to be the first. You people are so lucky to be the first ones to see it at Bothell. So
yeah, draft. Emphasis on draft. Yes.
I was wondering if this would push into conversations about assessment and grading as well. It didn't sound like it. Just I wonder about that. I've been worrying about it for the last couple of years and changing my grading, and I did the specs grading group this summer as well because I'm still exploring that. But I just feel like one area that I've definitely had conversations with about like the qualitative difference in how people grade, how grades are given, what the assessment process is just bewildering to students. So I have to do a bunch of work to just be explain why I'm different than other people so that they understand why I'm doing it. And I just feel like as a faculty we could benefit from more of those conversations. And so it sounds, the list definitely is broad enough to include that, but it sounds more like how you run classes, how you design things, and the assessment piece seems like that's the place where faculty power is one of the places where it's most acute. You get to decide this grade that has impacts on their financial aid, on their future major, on all, and the way that's done is completely opaque to me, what other people do, and it's opaque to the students, and I see that as a big problem.
yeah, please note that on your sheet.
Yeah.
We're going to be collecting all this feedback.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think that there is a note on here, so there's a list of FAQs and sort of thinking through some of the common questions that have come up in the process thus far. And the idea being that, good teaching is also iterative. So there's this element of how we use this to be reflective about why we're making the choices that we're making. So I feel like that's a part of it as well. Yeah.
On student evaluations, we do talk about how important these are and how we will incorporate student feedback. I was hearing from my students this summer that they have real trouble with the evaluation forms.
It's changing.
So the boxes cannot be expanded, right? So they've written all of this detailed feedback, and then they realize, oh no, I've got to shorten that from a paragraph to a sentence. In addition, they're told that they won't time out, and they do. If they take too long.
Give all that feedback to Deb. She's on that.
Yeah, I am on that.
And in addition, they're told, oh, they can come back to it later. No. If they don't finish it and they try to log back in, everything they've already worked on is disappeared.
They just did a really quickly. They just did a big tri-campus push to get some feedback on student evaluations. It was a Husky check-in, and that was in spring. So there is some current data that was just sent out, which I'm happy to share with you, but I can also pass along that feedback because that group is still continuing to work and sort of think about what was created from that, and then also how might this be impacted, and just into how do we continuing to improve student evaluations and think about the way that they're used overall. So absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead, if it's all right, I'm going to go ahead and start passing these out. So basically at the top it says unit name, facilitator name, and then number of participants. And then on here, there's all the different elements on the front, and then each one is outlined on here. So if you could, like I said, if you could have one person who can take reasonably legible notes, that would be awesome, because we'll probably type it out to share the feedback as well. That would be wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and pass them out. Yes.
Really helpful, productive, and supportive conversations to this effort. And I'm sorry that I'm imagining cutting this short.
There is going to be another online form that will get sent out. So if you're looking ahead and realize you didn't get to a certain one and you want to make sure that that feedback is shared, please know that there will be a space for that. So I don't want you to feel that I'm cutting the process short overall as well. But what we're going to do is continue to transition. So we don't need to share out. I'm happy to collect the forms. And then again, sending out that additional form that will be online for you to add on your own time and to add additional feedback as you see fit. Okay. So thank you all so much for this, and really appreciate your feedback. And I'm going to pass it over.
All right, perfect. So next up we have Penelope Wood from the campus library to talk a little bit about our DCX library assignment.
Yeah, I know that y'all have had a lot of computer processing here. I'm Penelope Wood, my pronouns are they and them. I'm the library coordinator for information literacy instruction in your Discovery Corps classes. So I'm not going to take a lot of time because I'm sitting between you and lunch. But what y'all should anticipate is that there will be a library assignment continuing in your Discovery Corps classes, and this is foundational for students to get exposure to the library, and it provides them foundation for their beer at 135 so they all are here, and then it also provides them the scaffolding for research in their majors using the library and information. So Cinnamon talked about, on one side, about information fluency. We talk about that as information literacy in the library, so you'll see that as the constructs of why students are doing a parallel assignment to a research-based assignment that y'all have designed for your class. So our library assignment complements your research-based assignment, and what's going to happen is one of 12 librarians is going to be assigned to your course. Expect an email from the librarian saying, Library Assignment Discovery Corps in the subject heading, and that librarian will reach out to you. You want to add us, the librarian, to your Canvas site because we're delivering the assignment on Canvas, so add us as a TA or an instructor. Librarian role just lets us see what your syllabus is, right? So we have an assignment we've designed. It will parallel your research-based assignment, and there's going to be minimal modifications on that assignment, so it's a common assignment across 1,200 plus students. We're working in 40 classes, isn't it? So we have a lot of courses we're working with, and this is just one of the classes, one selection of classes, because we work at Cascadia and at UW-Waffle. So your librarian's also going to be working with probably 3 or 4 other Discovery Corps. So your assignment may happen in week 2, it may happen in week 6, it may happen in week 9. It just depends on when your research-based assignment is delivered, right? Or like later in the class. So folks who've worked with us before know that it's like a lot of what's going to happen. Well, once we get engaged in email and in contact and touching base with your assigned librarian, it will make more sense. So if you're new, so bear with us. We did make some changes this year. We're only using the UW Library Search, which on the library's webpage is the Omnibox that you see, instead of looking at 3 different databases, which is very confusing, right, for students. Our goal for this is students know there's a library, students know that there are people who can help them with library research, and that they do some iterative process-based work, moving through one tool, selecting different types of information for different needs, which are aligned with your research-based assignments, right? So they're going to be doing some reflection questions, and then we also have a section about critical information literacy, looking at the idea of algorithms and how information comes to you, rather than assuming that students engage search all the time, right? Because we're getting information that's delivered to us based on our previous histories and our algorithm personalities, right, that we've curated forever. So that's part of that. So critical information literacy, library search, and then some reflection on that. So yeah, the big thing is when your librarian emails you, respond to them, and they will pick up and make plans with you. But they will be emailing you this week, next week, and then even week 1, right? So like, is the next week 1? So that's super brief. But it's a shift from what you may have been used to. So y'all like change, right?
Can we see this even before our library emails us? We can find it somewhere to look at it.
The library assignment, no, because we want to import it into your campus course. And our interface changes all the time, so we're having to update the assignment nonstop with like
why are our wings purple instead of blue, or why, like so it's kind of, no.
Yeah. Another appeal. For composition faculty, could we possibly import it into our composition Canvas page? Because it would be nice for us to know exactly what's going on in businesses, stuff for alignment.
Well, I'll talk with my library coordinator who works with the Beaver 135 and English 102 Cascadia, and we will follow up. But what is your name? I'm sorry.
Sylvia.
Sylvia, okay. So I'm going to say no, but yes, but yeah. So, but in your composition courses, in this class where we do some evaluation work, but in your composition courses where you really get into evaluation and looking at discourse and disciplines kind of research. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's different. We're doing a couple of different things.
Yes. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. I feel bad saying no to y'all. Did your hand over here?
No, I was just going to say, I can email the composition faculty about that.
Okay. Any other quick comments? And we're super excited to work with y'all. We do have some compression issues with everything being in this fall. So just, all these discovery courses being in fall quarter, it's kind of hardcore for like catering to like individual like modifications and assignments, I guess, right? So, but we are teaching partners with you, and we do think about teaching in like a scaffold and intentional way. So, yeah, and a lot of you work in libraries all the time. Anyways, you're like, shut up. But so sorry, Sue.
And you always have succinct ways to say things, and having played around.
People agree with you.
Well, we've all played, many of us have been experimenting with ChatGPT, which can do everything that a library search can do. So what do we say to our students?
Well, okay, so this is interesting because we are, very briefly, we are introducing a question that is like, so Dr. Sophia Emergenova, we know her, right? Algorithms of Repression, most of us know her work. So there's a video that's the MacArthur Foundation. It's a brief 4-minute video. Students learn about algorithms and bias and all this stuff. And then we have a question we've added that's like, now that you know that Dr. Sophia Emergenova, an internet scholar, is doing research like this, and other folks are doing research like this, how do you think about information that comes to you instead of like, because we're not seeking information. You have your tab, and we have a question that's like, comes to you through your tablet, your phone, through social media, all this stuff. So we're trying to frame a different way of thinking about information environment as I move through it, and it interacts with me. Information might be an agent, and I might be just, it's coming at me, right? So how is that different as a contrast to when I seek and search for information for academic purposes? Does that make sense? And then we do say predictive technologies and AI, and lots of us are using ChatGPT for everyday questions or whatever. But, in academic context, we're going to use this, right? So, how do you address large language model programs like ChatGPT?
Yeah, we don't have a university policy yet on that, do we?
So I think librarians generally are like, this is a really useful thing for you to learn, and if you use these technologies, you have to cite the information that's created, and you'll be plagiarizing. That's how our approach is. But I think there is some. I think that there's some groups that are talking about generative AI, right?
Yeah, and Kim has been doing a lot of work on this as well. So we had our faculty forum last February where we had a really great discussion about it. And there's some interest in potentially having like a learning community around it. We're creating resources to share with you as well. On the 5th uniform syllabus, there is a section that kind of gives you some additional language around how you might want to talk to students about it. So there's some pieces, but please come talk to me if you are interested in some different work, because we've been kind of, over last year there was a workshop we did with career services for actually graduate students around AI and job search. So there are some rumblings of those types of things as well, so we can create more material if folks want to engage in that conversation further. Yes.
And the UW libraries across Tacoma, Seattle, and here at the Motley Branch. Tacoma, Seattle, and here the Dean of the Libraries is putting together a task force work group that is going to be looking at generative AI and how our libraries, what that means for our work, how we do instruction, how we use this, so those conversations are happening. But it's not about academic integrity and honesty in this sort of kind of context that those conversations are happening. If you have questions, my email's not on here, but I'm here. Penelope Wood, you can search me up, or you can jot down my email. It's woodpd@uw.edu.
Awesome. Thank you.